I did throw together a top 5, and I will I think we may have already done 1960, and not done a top 5 for it. But the Dolce Vita will show up twice.
Yeah.
So real quick, my top 5 for 1961. Number 5 is The Parent Trap by David Swift, starring Haley Mills and Haley Mills, which is an ad that I remember from the Disney Channel so vividly growing up.
Me too.
That movie's a lot of fun. My number 4 is 101 Dalmatians, which is one of the better Disney Animation Studios films. Watched it again. Let's see, when did I do that? I believe last year. Yep, in April of last year. And I was like, this movie's freaking cool. And the Disney version screws up the aspect ratio, which is annoying, the Disney Plus version. So if you have that on DVD, I recommend watching it that way. My number 3 is West Side Story, which is just, I mean, everyone knows what West Side Story is. It's freaking awesome. I like it more than the new one, although I like the new one, but I think the original is better. My number 2 is La Dolce Vita, and my number 1 is Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo, which is the first in a 2-part movie about samurai bodyguard that was then adapted into the first installment of the Dollars trilogy, Fistful of Dollars. So check out Yojimbo. It's freaking cool. And then watch A Fistful of Dollars. It's freaking cool.
Yeah. I haven't seen Yojimbo either, so maybe I just need to do the whole run. I need to do Kurosawa is a kind of a big blind spot for me too. I've only seen a couple of his movies, so I'm sure there's a lot for me to explore there.
We got more coming up on the podcast. So
good. So if I were to do my top 5 of 61, I actually only had a top 4, but since you mentioned The Parent Trap, I know I've seen it. I must not have it marked on Letterboxd, but I mean, I definitely saw it back in the day, so I'm going to make that my number 5 just as an honorable whatever. It's my number 5. I know I've seen it, which would make my number 4 Breathless, which again I don't particularly love, but it's got its place in film history for sure. My number 3 then is 101 Dalmatians, which is really very good. It's also my dad's favorite Disney movie, which we were all surprised to learn growing up. It's just one of those things you just don't expect to hear. Like, I think we were asking like for Christmas one year, like, yeah, what do you want for Christmas this year? He goes, well, 101 Dalmatians just came out on Blu-ray. So we're like, really? It's just he was serious and he wanted it, and we got it. We watched it, and it said it was his favorite. So, but it's also just very good. My number 2, then, these are similar to Brad's. My number 2 is the original West Side Story. Yeah, it's great. Still holds up. The remake also, is very good, but the original is better. And then my number 1 is La Dolce Vita, which, I think is amazing. And I made a best of the decade of the 60s list this morning, and La Dolce Vita was my number 5 of the decade on that list. So I do regard it very highly.
Oh, nice. I have a top 10. If it's all right, if I go 10,
nice.
I'm not going to include La Dolce Vita because I guess I have that in 1960, but I'll tell you where it would probably fall. This way I get to extra film. Honorable mention, I'll throw out The Absent-Minded Professor because it gave us flubber.
So there crap, you go. I love that movie. Why don't I have that marked on Letterboxd?
So I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but flubber, who could forget? Yeah. Number 10, I have The Parent Trap, which is a very good movie, as you both already mentioned. Number 9, last year, Marienbad. Speaking of Hiroshima Mon Amour, Alan Renier is sort of surrealist. This is like a real experiment, that's actually fascinating versus Breathless, thinking about French New Wave. This is like a real surrealist avant-garde movie that I do remember enjoying. It's been quite a while since I've seen it. Number 8, The Guns of Navarone is like a classic Hollywood action film that I actually had higher on my list when I made up my draft, and then I actually rewatched it this week because I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. Pretty mediocre. So anyway, I mean, not mediocre. It was okay. It was just not what I expected. So I bumped it down to 8. 7, I have 1, 2, 3, which is a Billy Wilder, sort of a Cold War comedy with James Cagney. It's sort of fast-talking, almost sort of like screwball comedy style, but in like 1961. And I remember thinking it was quite good. So I threw it there at number 6, or excuse me, number 7. Number 6, I have Yojimbo, which I haven't seen since I was probably 20 years ago, maybe since I was a teenager, but I remember really liking it. I watched it because I love the Fistful of Dollars movies, and I saw those a ton when I was a teenager. And so I remember it was good. I had Guns of Navarone ranked like neck and neck with it until I rewatched Guns of Navarone. So I don't know. I got to rewatch that too. Maybe it would fall or rise, but
it won't fall.
It won't. Okay. All right. And then my top 5, you guys do this every week because this is a special occurrence for me. I actually, not only did I rewatch Guns of Navarone, I added to my, I crossed off with a couple more never did it's.
I do that all the time.
Okay. Yeah. So in preparation of this, so I watched Lola, which is Jacques Demy, so another French New Wave figure, though he's sometimes put on the outs of this because his movies are more fun, frankly, is my opinion. I mean, so if you've ever seen Umbrellas of Cherbourg, is just an incredibly romantic movie. And so I wanted to see his first film, with this Lola. It stars Anouk Amour, Anouk Ami, who plays Madalena in, so I just watched La Dolce Vita and I was kind of like, who's that actress? She's like incredible. And so I was like, I got to watch Lola. So I watched Lola. It was super romantic, no surprise, a lot of fun. I really, really liked it. It's low budget, but you could tell like this filmmaker's, he's just a romantic. It's just a huge delight. Number 4, Judgment at Nuremberg, which I also watched this week. That was kind of a never did it for me. Super heavy, obviously, doesn't hold back. It actually, uses some pretty serious footage from concentration camps, which I did not expect to see in a Hollywood film from 1961, but really great film. It deserves its reputation as one of the great courtroom dramas of all time. And then my 3, 2, 1 were tough to rank, but Breakfast at Tiffany's, despite having one of the most racist characters in Hollywood history, with Jerry Lewis as a side character, it's still just magical to me. I love that film.
Isn't Breakfast at Tiffany's
Mickey Rooney?
Mickey Rooney, that's what I mean.
Oh, it's Mickey Rooney. Yeah, sorry, not Jerry Lewis. Apologies to the Lewis estate, but so I feel like you have to say that first because it's so horrible. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the film, but that is such a horrible anchor, and yet I still find parts of the movie so magical. It's just very special. So. And then my 2 is The Hustler, which I have only seen once years ago, but I just always thought of it as one of the great. I think of it as a sports movie, so I think of it as a great sports movie about losing, and I love that movie. So, and my number 1 is The Misfits, which I just really want to recommend people watch The Misfits. I don't think enough people have seen The Misfits. John Huston film written by Arthur Miller for Marilyn Monroe when they were still married. It's her last film. It's Clark Gable's last film. It's Montgomery Clift's one of his last films. It's devastatingly sad. These desperate people. I don't even remember a lot of the plot because it's been so long since I've seen it. I'm kind of afraid to rewatch it, honestly, because I might not like it as much as I did. But yeah, I just really recommend The Misfits. So everybody watch The Misfits. And La Dolce Vita would be right up there with those top 3 somewhere. Breakfast at Tiffany's, The Hustler, The Misfits. Just a special film. So
I can't believe John Ford made a sad Western.
Oh, John Huston. Actually, not John Ford. John Huston. Yeah. So
still.
Even honestly, even more so.
Yeah.